Bills Mafia, what is up? And welcome into another episode of the Humble and Hungry podcast. My name is Charlie Gross, and I am back after a 6-week layoff, a much-needed layoff, and I am here with the busiest man in Buffalo Bills content creation, certainly a rising star, I would say, based on his work with the Buffalo fan base. I have my guy, Justus Radford, with me here today. Justus, how you doing?
I'm great, man. I don't know if I'm as busy as I used to be, which I kind of feel shameful for. But then again, I guess I do need a break sometimes. But I just want the season to come back, man. I'm ready for training camp and everything. So yeah, and thanks for having me on, bro. This is always fun anytime we get to talk football and just chop it up.
Yeah, I definitely took a break and I was like, man, this is kind of fun. Like having a break and training camp kind of snuck up on me. And I know that it seems like you guys have also taken a bit of a break from some of your shows. You do so much stuff over there. Obviously, you're the YouTube and podcast director and manager. I'm assuming you guys are going to start the frequency of your shows are going to pick back up. So why don't you, before we get into the topic, why don't you tell everybody what you got coming up ahead with shows for you? And I know you just added a podcast, a Bills player podcast, so that's super exciting too.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a bunch of shows that are coming in. Yes, this kind of take like brief hiatus, somewhat. It's really more so just because, you can't do everything every week, especially in the off season where there's nothing to talk about. And, in the regular season, you excited for your show every week because you have an opportunity to talk about the game, last week, and then the game is coming up this week, right? But in the off season, the weeks kind of just like they all blend together and there's not really much to talk about. So a couple people have taken, some time off, including myself. But I feel like, with training camp coming up, we are going to be launching, the YouTube page and the podcast page. And, we've got a lot of stuff coming. We've got, the top 25 of top 100 Buffalo Bills of all time is coming up soon. So that's going to happen. We got a whole bunch of YouTube content in the making. As you mentioned, we got Zach Moss, to be featured up on our our platforms and everything. So yeah, man, everything is pointing up for Buffalo fan base, the original Bills Mafia. So
well, I mean, that's awesome, and you guys have been very, very kind to me, giving me the sort of the unofficial official special guest title that
your family, Charlie.
I appreciate that. I really enjoy you guys, and the reason that I wanted to have you on, other than I like talking football with you, is I needed somebody to help me kind of break down the wide receiver room in a different way, because I don't love the positional, breakdown thing. It's just not for me. So I wanted to kind of approach it in a different way. But before we get into that, this is an article that came out about 2 weeks ago. It's from Tom Curran, who's a very respected and long-standing beat reporter in the Boston area. And he decided that he was going to do a top 20 skill position players from the AFC East. So tight ends, running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks. And he says that he used overall grades from Pro Football Focus, projection, and last year's stats.
Top 3?
Yeah, so this is the top 20.
Top 20, okay.
Yeah, and it starts off really well, and then he kind of goes off the rails. So I wanted to get your reaction. So top 20, starting with number 1. Number 1 is Josh Allen. No big surprise there. Number 2, he has Tyreek Hill. Number 3, okay, Stephon Diggs. Well, let's just stop there. So we've got Allen, Hill, and Diggs. What are your thoughts right off the bat there?
I feel like Stephon Diggs and Tyreek Hill are a little interchangeable. I would personally prefer Stephon Diggs just because I feel like he can do more as a wide receiver. But I understand the allure that Tyreek Hill brings, that ridiculous speed. And plus, I mean, he's no slouch in route running or anything like that. It's not like he's a horrible route runner. I just personally think Stephon Diggs is a little better. So I feel like that's a little interchangeable, but I'm not mad at Tyreek Hill being number 2.
Here's where it gets fun. Number 4 is Mac Jones. So so Mac Jones apparently is the 4th best player in the.
Is this guy from New England? He's from like Boston.
Yeah, he's a Boston area. I mean, he's been on the league probably 30 years or something.
This must be a gag or something, a joke. Yeah, I don't think Mac Jones makes that top 10.
Yeah, I'm not even sure I don't think he's top 10. I'm not sure if he even makes the top
20.
Yeah. Oh, and before we go any farther, too, here's the breakdown of total players from each team. So he has 5 Bills, he has 4 Dolphins, 4 Jets, and if you're doing the math at home, that leaves 7 Patriots. So there's seven Patriots on the list. Mac Jones at number 4. We've got Jalen Waddle at number 5 and Hunter Henry at number 6. Kendrick Bourne, who actually had really good PFF grades last year. I believe that's number 7. Number 8, Tua Tagovailoa, quarterback, Miami Dolphins. So now we're off the rails. We sort of got back on the rails. Like I respect Hunter Henry, and then we sort of took a sharp right turn. I feel like at some point here. Your thoughts? If I know anyone who's watching the YouTube recording can see your reaction. People who are just listening on the podcast feed, if you want to.
Oh my God! Mac Jones at 4, Tua at 8. We throwing Kendrick Bourne in there. We're throwing who was Hunter Henry? Okay.
Yeah. So it's Mac Jones 4. Jalen Waddle 5, Hunter Henry 6, Kendrick Bourne 7, Tua is 8.
No, 7 and 8. I don't know. Jalen Waddle is at 5. I like him. I do. I think he has potential. I don't know if I'm putting him at 5. I feel like there's probably better players that are going to be later, in the rankings than some of these top 10 guys, because Dawson Knox being in the top 10 is absolutely nuts. Mike Gesicki not being in the top 10 is absolutely nuts, or at least not higher than Tua Tagovailoa. Are you kidding me? What?
So spoiler alert, there's only one more Bills receiver in the top 20.
Is it Crowder?
We'll have to see who it is when we get there. So we've got Tua at 8. We've got Gesicki at 9, Jacoby Myers at 10. Then we have Dawson Knox on the list at, I believe we're at 11 right now. We might be at 12. I'm sorry. These aren't numbered. So I'm just going down the list and trying to keep this in my head. So we've got Dawson Knox. Then we have Ramondre Stevenson. So that's 12 or 13. So how are you feeling? We got Knox at 11?
Why is Mac Jones at 4? I'm still mad about that. Because Mike Gesicki is a million times better at his position than Mac Jones is, right? And even if you want to argue that this is like a value thing, I still think Mike Gesicki is more valuable than Tua Tagovailoa. If you told me tomorrow you have to lose either Tua Tagovailoa or Mike Gesicki, Tua is gone. So I don't know. This isn't making a whole lot of sense.
So so we've got Knox at 12, Ramondre Stevenson, the other Patriots running back, at 13, and then 14. We've got it, and now you can justify this ranking based on if you're doing how boss of a person he is in his personal life, you can justify this guy at 14 because, quite frankly, I didn't think he had it in him. But with the recent news, I don't know if you've been paying attention, Zach Wilson is at 14. So, based on his recent exploits in the dating world, I can see why he'd be up there, but I don't know if he's the 14th best skill position player in the AFC East based on football alone.
If I could be honest, if I am switching Zach Wilson and Mac Jones in terms of like roster, I think that the Patriots do everything they did last year and more. I think that hell, if I could switch the roster between Zach Wilson and Tua, I think he could do everything Tua did last year and more. I think Zach Wilson is better than both of those guys. But this is not to say that he deserves to be that high. This is just an absolute I'm just in shock as to how high those people are. Like Mike Gesicki at 9, Dawson Knox at 11. What are we talking about right now? We haven't even talked about the Bills' second wide receiver. And we're talking about 7 Patriots players. So you're telling me that in the top 20 players in the AFC East, more than a third of them are Patriots players, yet the Patriots are projected to finish third to last in the division this year.
Right. And their quarterback is one of the supposedly one of the best players, yet still somehow they're only going to win like 7 games this year.
Yeah, no. If that, that'd be lucky with 7.
Right. So Zach Wilson is 14. Then it's Devin Singletary at 15. Devontae Parker at 16. Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, and Braxton Berrios are all next. And rounding out the top 20 is Buffalo Bills wide receiver Jamison Crowder. So,
first of all, Devontae Parker needs to be way higher on the list. I don't understand a world where who was it? It was a wire. Kendrick Bourne is before Devontae Parker. That makes no sense to me. There's a ton wrong with this list. This guy, he lives and breathes New England Patriots in Red Sox colors clearly because there's no logic involved.
It's funny because this ties in unintentionally, actually, on my part. It's like the whole Jets, the whole Dolphins, and the whole Patriots wide receiver core is on the list, basically, right? And the Bills got Diggs and only got Crowder. And, I honestly, me and Gabe Davis have whatever, but he deserves to be on the list.
Yeah.
I mean, he's top 20.
I appreciate you for saying that, Charlie. Okay,
come on, man. Like, he's an explosive player. I mean, I don't, people know how I feel about Gabe, but he might be the most explosive offensive player on the list outside of Waddle and Hill.
Right.
Honestly.
You've never said that Gabriel Davis wasn't a good player. You just said
no. I just think he's
going to be a number 2.
He's good at a few things, and that's fine. Like, that's fine. There's
nothing wrong with that. Right.
Yeah. But so he's not on the list. I'm sure there's other snubs if people from other teams are listening. But like Cedric Wilson was just signed by the Dolphins, right? You can make a case for him being on this list.
Kendrick Bourne being so high.
What about Chase Edmonds, the Miami running back? Like,
Raheem Mostert.
Yeah. This is such a weird list,
Yeah, it definitely is. The bias is like jumping out of his soul in this list. And I mean, it's one thing to feel how you feel. It's another thing to feel how you feel and then publish that. You know what I mean? Like, because you got to stand on that now. And I don't think that you can I don't think that you can have an intelligent football conversation and justify what is put on that paper.
Yeah, and I agree, and I understand. Like, he's a well-respected, beat reporter, but like I think that's the problem with people, and it's a problem with people. I think in a lot of markets, and maybe the Bills writers do it. I don't think they do. But like maybe other people think they do. But the bias from it seems like Boston especially is pretty strong, and it's like you're not good anymore. Like I understand you have good players. I'm not saying you don't have good players, but you aren't good anymore. Like
Yeah.
I don't
And
know.
they're used to being good. I get it. It'd be like if the Bills became trash next year, I would still put Josh Allen in top 5 quarterbacks, right?
Well, sure,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, but
But
and
if
I
they
would still be
had
like, well,
Tyrod
the
Taylor, I
defense.
wouldn't.
Fair enough.
Just saying, like you got to understand, like what Mac Jones is, like I mean, and maybe
I
and
don't know if
he
he's
probably
as
makes a
talented
top
as
20
Tyrod Taylor.
list, but I think he's
He's
18th,
low
19th,
level.
or
Yeah,
20th. Like
exactly.
he's not
Right.
like fifth. That's
Agreed.
all.
And Tua should be higher than Mac Jones just by virtue of I feel like he's done a little bit more in this league. I feel like Mac Jones literally skated by on his run game and defense. And although Tua hasn't done like extremely better, I still feel like he has done more. He has
Yeah,
a healthier pedigree, for me.
yeah, I get you. Well, since we were talking about other teams' wide receivers, let's move over to the Buffalo Bills wide receivers. I think it's fair to say that you know Diggs, Davis, Crowder are pretty entrenched. You would assume, obviously, as the first three guys. And while there's certainly storylines, I'm more interested in is there like something you're looking for, like right, like training camp starts, like the rookies are already there, but the veterans get there I think on Sunday, and then things or Saturday, and things start really like cooking and going on Sunday. So when you log on to Twitter, starting on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday going forward, and you see Matt Perino or Ryan Talbot, is there a certain player that you're looking for news from, or is it more about who's being used where, the formations, like is like the guys like Shakur, Stevenson? Is there one of those guys who you're hoping breaks through, or you're looking for for positive reports from the beat? Mookie Hawkins, right? When you talk to Mookie,
Yeah.
are you going to ask him about who are you asking him about?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I get all my information from Mookie, so that's pretty cool to have like a personal source. But I will say that I am looking for anytime I see that type of news, I'm looking for two people. And I know we're talking about wide receivers, but I'm looking for Christian Benford and I'm looking for Khalil Shakir. All right. I really like Khalil Shakir. I think that Khalil Shakir is going to be a huge part of our um, offense going forward. Let's say 2024 and beyond. Right. I kind of feel like he might have like a little bit of a expedited Isaiah McKenzie type career, right? It might be like, he has to get his feet under him a little bit, and he has to find his place on his team. But I think that once his confidence is able to be there and he's able to be comfortable in the locker room, be comfortable in the system, be comfortable with the scheme, with his coaches and with Josh and everything else that goes with that, I feel like he can be one of the most explosive, most talented playmakers that we have. So I like Jamison Crowder. I feel like Jamison Crowder, he kind of feels like a Cole Beasley to me, right? I don't think he's going to be somebody who we just like is here for the rest of his life, for the rest of his career.
Right.
I don't think he's going to be a Buffalo Bills legend or anything like that. Although I think Cole Beasley did himself a lot of favors in Buffalo. Outside of the vaccine stuff, he was pretty much a legend, right? But I think Jamison Crowder will have 2, maybe 3 good years here. And then I think he'll probably be gone because Khalil Shakir will be coming up out of, the back. Kind of similar to like, I don't think if Gabriel Davis I don't think if he did what he did in the postseason last year, I think we might have an Emmanuel Sanders back, or we might have signed a veteran wide receiver or something like that. I think because they were like, wow, he went absolutely nuts, and it's not the first time he's done it. We've seen him make just ridiculous catches on the sideline. We've seen him make, all these spectacular grabs, and just he's in the end zone by himself all the time. And I feel like they're like, well, he clearly has what it takes to be the number 1-2 receiver, so we're going to count on that. Similar to what happened, in my opinion, with Dane Jackson. If you remember last year, Levi Wallace, they were ready to let him go. Like, go, fine, like pick a team. He was like, I want to come back to Buffalo. They were like, we'll give you $1 million. It's like, all right, And then this year, I think he would have took another pay cut, but it was like, it's okay, we're good. We don't need you anymore. Like, and so I think it'll be that type of situation where Khalil Shakir will come in and somebody will lose their job to him. I don't think it'll be Gabriel Davis or Stephon Diggs, obviously. I think it'll be Jamison Crowder might be the culprit there. And I think that Khalil Shakir might make Marquez Stevenson a little redundant.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because it's this weird battle too, as I mentioned to you before we started too, about all these same guys. They're battling for roster positions for a variety of reasons. The Bills have never kept more than 6 wide receivers, on the active roster. But the way I see it, they might be forced to keep 7, especially with this competition going on with the kick return, the punt return. All the guys in the competition seem to be wide receivers. You've got Tavon Austin, you've got Isaiah McKenzie, although they might have kind of passed him by with that, I think, a little bit. You got Shakur, you got Stevenson. So you figure that McKenzie's probably going to make the team. Kumaro probably makes the team. And then you've got Stevenson, Hodgins, Austin, Shakur, right? And all these guys are fighting for 1 or 2 spots. I feel like they almost have to keep 7. I don't know. Shakur is what, a 3rd-round pick? I don't think you're going to sneak him onto the practice squad.
You're not. No, actually, no. He was a 4th-round pick, which was
I still don't think you sneak him on, right? I mean, you might have to keep 7, and like you said, Stevenson and Hodgins, they might never see the active roster.
Yeah.
With the way they keep it. And people don't even talk about Tavon Austin, but I know I mentioned to you and Jake when I was on the last time with you guys, people might want to check out highlights of Tavon Austin on YouTube. I know it was 10 years ago, but that guy can fly. I mean, just a dynamic. And I know he's 30 now, but still he's got to still have some of that. He's incredible.
He's still fast, right? Absolutely. If you take a look at the back end of the wide receiver room, and I feel like the only player you could really sneak onto the practice squad is Isaiah Hodgins and Marquez Stevenson. I feel like anybody else is probably getting snatched up. Kumaro is getting snatched up. Khalil Shakir is getting snatched up. Who am I missing? I feel like I'm missing somebody.
I mean, Austin.
Austin.
They signed him late.
I don't know if he would get snatched up, but I feel like he has to make the team first. I feel like if he doesn't make the team, he's not going to the practice squad. He's just going to be cut. So,
right.
I think that it'll really determine who looks good in camp. At the returner position, like you mentioned, because with OJ Howard coming in, now you got Dawson Knox, OJ Howard, Sweeney. You're gonna see a lot of 11 personnel. I don't see them having a reason to keep 7 wide receivers, especially. I mean, we've seen that they're willing to let talent go, even if they like the talent, they'll let it go. We've seen that with what's that? The edge rusher name who we traded last year?
Oh, Gerald Johnson.
Antonio Williams. Guys who they really liked. They were like, all right, fine, we can't do nothing with you. We just have too many good players, and you have to go. So I can see Bean getting some value out of a Tanner Gentry. I can see him getting some value out of a. That's interesting, because I've heard that Jake Kumaro has been in a lot of lineups, and he's kind of been active.
Right.
So. If you ask me, I kind of feel like you should trade Jake Kumaro just because he has the highest value of any of your no-name receivers, right? He has a high name value just straight off the strength that Aaron Rodgers wanted him back, right? So now he's a commodity. And they kept him. Aaron Rodgers says great things about him, Brandon Beane has kept him this long. Josh Allen seems to love him. Clearly, he must have something special, right? So I feel like that's the guy who you get the most out of while you're developing these receivers, like a Shakir and a McKenzie and whatnot. I think that it'd be interesting to see because I think McKenzie is our best returner. I do. I don't know if they're like completely off of him because that Colts punt was bad. The kick return, where he just tripped over nothing and fell and fumbled. Yeah. That was when I was like, okay, this game's over. Should have turned it off, but I didn't. But it'll be tough because there's a lot of guys who you want to keep, but then again, you can't keep everybody. You're not going to be able to hide people on the practice squad, especially when you're the Buffalo Bills. Now you're going to have a target on your back. People notice that you're a good scouting team. They're going to want the players that you scouted, that you deemed good enough to play for your team. And just because, because we know what practice squad is. Practice squad is where they go to hide the people that they think could potentially be something one day, right? Especially the good teams. So, you get a great team like the Buffalo Bills with a great GM and great scouts. They're going to be like, all right, well, your whole practice squad is probably full of people who can start on at least 2 to 3 other teams in the NFL, So I think we're at a disadvantage in that sense, but that's a good problem to have,
Oh no, definitely. It's just like, Sean McDermott. So it's like, it's a good problem to have. I'm like, well, yeah, but you probably want to. I mean, I know you want to keep everybody, right? Like, you don't really want to. So I just always wonder, like, what's that like? Like, what's that like for them? Like you really don't want to lose a guy, but at the same time, you have guys who are, you know what I mean? That's just got to be a tough situation for them. But it's a business, and it is what it is. And I wonder too, with, we're assuming. Excuse me. Obviously, we're kind of assuming that Trey White will start the season on the PUP list. We don't have any information, obviously, but that's our best sort of speculation. And I wonder about Spencer Brown, because he had surgery and he hasn't even, I don't think, been in uniform since like the last playoff game. So I wonder if they might sort of use the PUP list for him, and maybe that opens up, right? That opens up a space for them to keep somebody. And I know McDermott even said last year when they kept all the defensive linemen, he kept them because he said, well, we want to keep these guys, and we thought someone would get injured. We don't want them to get injured, but we thought one of these 11 guys would get injured. We can move them to the IR and then bring somebody, and it didn't just work out that way. So I know they're into using, whatever means necessary, even the injury lists, to try to keep guys like Bucker's another guy who will probably start on the PUP list. So maybe that gives them a little flexibility to keep an extra. And then you were mentioning the tight ends. Don't forget, they probably want to keep Reggie Gilliam, right? I mean, he as well. So all of a sudden you've got 3 tight ends when last year they had 2. You've got the same amount of running backs. You got Reggie Gilliam, but now you've got 7 or 8 receivers that you really aren't sure you want to keep, but you aren't sure how you're going to accomplish that. So that's just going to be really interesting for me, just as we get further in, what sort of roster gymnastics, if any, or like you said, maybe they always trade offensive linemen. Maybe they're going to start trading some wide receivers this year instead.
I think I think that they're having a little bit of trouble with like who to give up on, right? Because chances are, once you get rid of a player, the chances of them coming back aren't very high, right? Because I think that Wyatt Teller thing really haunts Brandon Beane. I think he's like, we saw that he had potential to be great. We found it. We picked him up, we drafted him, and we got him on the roster. And he didn't pan out with us, but excuse me, he didn't pan out with us, but he went somewhere. Obviously, he went to Cleveland and became extremely successful. And Brandon Beane was like, I knew that he was going to be successful, and so I should have just given him a little bit more time. And I feel like they are now kind of, I don't want to say paralyzed, but I feel like that's a big thing for them, where they're like, all right, well, we don't want to lose out on a potential superstar because we didn't give him enough time. And I think that's the reason AJ Epinesa is still on the roster.
and Cody Ford. You know, they want to give
And
Cody
Cody
Ford a
Ford.
chance with Aaron Kromer. Kromer is one of the best, 2 or 3 offensive line coaches. You know, I think it would probably be foolish to not give Cody Ford at least a year with Kromer. Of course, the thing is unless somebody gets hurt, we'll probably never really know. You know what Ford looks like with Kromer because I don't think he'll beat out Bates or Saffold. So, you know, he may end up just being sort of this long term, you know, depth guy, like kind of like for those who are uh, aware of the roster during the 90s, like Glenn Parker. Glenn Parker was just kind of this offensive lineman that was always around. And, you know, eventually he ended up, you know, becoming a starter. But for the Super Bowl years, he was just kind of like your swing tackle, you know. So maybe that's a Cody Ford thing. And yeah, and the AJ Epinesa discussion is really, really interesting as well. I think we could probably spend a lot of time on that too, right? Like what is, you know, can they clone Austin Jackson and find a way to get him on all 32 teams or something? And then AJ would be a Hall of Famer.
Right.
Well, you know, Justice, I appreciate you doing this, coming out here with me, and tell once again the people where they can find you and where they can find not. I can't believe they wouldn't know where to find the original Bills Mafia, but let them know anyway, just in case they don't know.
No, man, it's like I'm not gonna lie. When I first got the call, you know, they were like Buffalo fan base, and I was like Buffalo fan base. And I go to the page, and was like, oh, Buffalo fan base. So I get it. You know, some people don't know like automatically. You know, you got to be reminded, like, oh, they're the people that started, you know, Bills Mafia. Oh, Del Reed, and you know, all these people. So yes, we are the original Bills Mafia, and I am just General Radford. You guys can follow me on Twitter at JA17MVP. Make sure you follow Buffalo Fan Base on all platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. You know, join the movement, be a part of Bills Mafia, and yeah, man. Charlie, you are my man. I really appreciate anytime we get to talk. You agreed to come on the show with us Friday, so that's going to be a great time. We got first round bye with my man Jake Jordan. We are doing NFL versus. Okay, so we will have Ocho Cinco versus Larry Fitzgerald. All right,
Oh,
highlight for highlight. We'll see who wins. Okay, next week we're doing Randy Moss versus Megatron. So
wow.
we're gonna,
Well, that's
you know,
interesting.
yeah, exactly. So, you know, make sure you guys come out, tune in. And it's going to be a great time. Of course, my man Charlie's going to be in the building. So it's always a great time anytime Charlie joins us. And yeah, you know, the Friday night was originally you guys's and
That's
everything.
true. I was amongst our little circle of creators. I was me and
Yeah,
Izzy were the original Friday night guys.
right,
So
exactly. So thanks again. Anytime, literally, bro, anytime you need me, I got you. So just let me know, bro.
yeah, no, I appreciate you. Appreciate you saying that. It's always nice to have a couple people you can rely on. And yes, please go check out all the stuff that Justice and the crew is doing over there. For us over here, 12 Squared is the parent company. Humble and Hungry is the podcast. We also have Trust the Process Analytics. Me and my wife, I believe, are going to record our first reaction video tonight. And if not tonight, it'll be sometime this weekend. Got an NFL podcast called Formations versus Formulations. I also just started writing for nutsandboltsports.com, so check them out on Twitter, Nuts and Bolts Sports. My first article will be dropping sometime this weekend, eventually. And please subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave us a comment, all that stuff. And of course, Bills Mafia, find a way to embrace your growth mindset. And as always, trust the process and go Bills.